Welcome back to the channel. So in this cooking class, shall I call it this way because we're always making tutorials here, we're going to be learning how to make French style fish fritters. We're going to be talking about batter, the different style we use in France, how to make the fritters, and then how to make a very special tangy kind of spicy sauce that originates from the French Caribbean, because the original version of that recipe comes from there, and these fritters are called the acra de morue, called the salted cod fish fritters. But we're just going to use simple white fish to make things simple. Let's get started. So let's begin here talking about the most important component, which is the batter. So every time you want to deep fry something in French cooking and you want to use fruit or vegetables or whatever, you dip it in and then deep fry. There's different types of batter that you can use. A lot of them derive from the crab batter to start with, but depending on what you're making, and the batter can be mixed with milk, like here, with water, sometimes with beer, and you can also use element to flavor the batter, and also yeast, depending on what you're making. There's also another style of like tempura style of batter that is used for vegetables. Like in Japanese cuisine, we're going to have a mix of normal flour, rice flour, potato starch, and so on and so forth, and plenty of different things. What I'm going to be sharing with you here is a simple base version that is pretty much based on the crab batter that you can use as well. And the good thing about it is that you can make it very simply just by using milk, like a crab batter, or you can replace the milk with beer. So if you like fish with a beer batter, you can use that recipe and use beer instead of milk. Very simple. Don't use water for that one though. The other difference is that a crab batter usually has whole eggs, and here we're only going to be using egg yolks. But that's about it, so let's make it. And now let's make the batter. One thing to note, when you have a recipe that includes batter, always make the batter first because it needs to rest for minimum an hour, sometime two, sometime more. So always start with this. First thing we're going to do, bowl. We're going to sift all the flour in the bowl. Always important, the sifting. Keep in mind, by the way, that if you're making a crab batter, it is pretty much the same process. So we've got dry ingredient number one, which is the flour. You always follow with another dry ingredient. It's going to be the salt, and there's no sugar in that one, okay? Then we make that kind of little well. We add here, it is only egg yolks in the middle, okay? And we start to mingling everything together. And what I'm going to do here, very simply, I'm going to start to add a little bit of the milk, a bit at a time, and we incorporate. And we're going to get something that's rather thick in here, okay? So now I'm all done. What I'll add here is a little bit of oil, and that's going to be it. We're going to mix everything there, and we're done. So as you can see, it is very simple. This is the end result. It's a thick batter, and remember, we're not making crepes, we're making fritters. The reason it's thick like this as well is because there is something extra that you can do if you want to. If you want to have something a bit lighter and airy, and to add some air, where you can make a meringue, and then add some meringue into the batter just before putting the fish and whatever. So resting time, remember, 1 hour minimum. Okay, if you want to leave it longer, you can. Make sure you just cover it like this. And if it gets a bit more dry as you keep it in the fridge, we can always add a little bit of milk in there. It's never a problem. Now, once you're done with the batter, the other thing you can make in advance is that spicy sauce, a dipping sauce that I've talked about. But to make it today, we're going to do it differently, because as you can see right here, there's a newcomer into my kitchen. And rest assured, this is not a sponsored or paid post by Magimix at all. It's something I just bought myself recently because I needed one. The reason I'm talking about this, it is because that's not the only thing it came with. This is what came with that machine. And surprisingly, Magimix, if you don't know, it's a French company. And there is about 50 more recipes in there. So I'm going to do that sauce to show you. We're going to see with the book what happens. And I think, you know what, on my next videos, I'm going to take you through some of the recipes in there that I really want to test, because it's claiming seconds and I want to see if that's going to work. So for now, let's test that sauce. Now let's do this. This is quite exciting. I love to try these little gadgets. So there we got the bowl. It says we have to use the normal blades. So we're going to lock this thing into place. And this is the lid we're going to be using, okay? And it says here we have to put first the chilies in there with the onions in there, and the coriander and the parsley. Okay, so I've already prepared the ingredients. This is to leave the stem. It's called a sprig of something. Apparently there's a stem with it. And pearls 4 to 5 times. Can we do this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if you're curious, that's how it looks like. It's kind of coarse. Okay, interesting. And now we'll continue. Add all the other ingredients and blend for 30 seconds. Oh, it says it's an extremely hot sauce, so we have to be careful. So the other ingredients, so I've got some vinegar, some lemon juice, there's some oil in there, okay, and there is some salt. Up. And then it says to blend this for 30 seconds. I'm gonna put here a timer on, okay? So here I go, 30 seconds. Almost there. Boom. All right, let's see what we've got. So let's see if it's super hot. I'm gonna go on fire here. Yeah, I think it's hot. While your batter is resting, it is time to prepare the fish. Now the fish is gonna take a little time because we need to pre-cook it, we need to poach it, and you don't use the fish raw like this. So make sure you trim it, you get all the nice pieces, okay? And we're gonna poach it in a courbouillon, which is water with some aromatics. I'll show you that in a second. When this is done, we're gonna mix the cooked fish, we're gonna flake it, put it through the batter with some flavoring ingredients. So the flavoring ingredients can vary, but typically you're gonna have spring onion, chives. This is a mixture of shallots and garlic and a bit of chili. It can be cayenne pepper. This is Espelette pepper from the Basque Country. You can use Thai chilies if you want something really strong. Salt and pepper. And then we're gonna mix everything together, the fish, the batter, the aromatics, so have that kind of thick paste, and this is what we're gonna use to make the fritters. So you see, nothing complicated. Let me start by showing you how we're gonna be poaching the fish. And now for the courbouillon. What does it mean? Courbouillon means the short boil. All it is water. We're gonna have a little bit of salt in there, and we've got all the aromatics. You can add thyme, but it's just really to add a little flavoring in there. I'm gonna be using a hint of acidity, so I'm using lemon. You can use vinegar if you want. So courbouillon, we're gonna wait for this to boil. We're gonna leave this to boil very shortly, and then turn the heat off, and then plunge the fish in here. This is a technique from the Roux brothers that they tend to use. Instead of putting the fish, well, leave it to boil to avoid any overcooking. They kind of boil first, turn the heat off, and plunge the fish in there, which is something that works pretty well. Perfect. So as you can see, it's boiling. Courbouillon, short boiling, so 1 or 2 minutes maximum. You don't want to cook anything, and I'm turning my heat off. Simple. And now I'm going to take my fish and I'm going to plunge it in there directly. So typically 5 or 6 minutes. You can leave it in there. Always important, use a timer. Up. Let's go. Okay, I'm all done. And by the way, I'm using rockling in here. I've added some peppercorn. It's got a little bit milky, the water, but that technique from the Roux brothers, one of the thing that I really like is that you will never overcook your fish. So you bring to the boil, turn the heat off, and the fish, you see, look at that. It's moist and tender, just about cooked, and it can be flaked. That kind of technique is golden for me, especially at home, because it really prevents you to make big mistakes, because fish, if you overcook it, it's terrible. So the next step once the fish is good is to flake it. So as you can see, this is the texture we want, the pieces like this. You can use a fork, you can use a knife, you can use your hands. Make sure you wash your hands. All done. So look at this. We're all ready. I took my batter out of the fridge. I've got my fish that is pre-cooked and flaked and all the other flavoring ingredients. Now, measuring for the making of the fritters, very, very important. The weight of the fish you use, okay, let's say I'm going to use 300 grams. You need to have half that weight in batter. Okay, so more fish than batter. So I'm going to take here 300 grams of that fish, and then I'm going to divide this in two and take 150 grams of batter. Okay, and then we're going to mix everything through. And now for the assembly. So I've got my batter that's been measured here, and this is a starting point. We may need to adjust a little bit more, depends on your type of fish, how running your batter is, etc., etc. But this is it. Now, let's talk baking powder. A lot of recipes say you need to add a bit of baking powder. Usually I don't. I'm gonna add, just to show you, so a tiny bit, like a kind of, not even a quarter of a teaspoon in there. It is said that sometimes it makes the whole, your beignet, your fritters a little bit more fluffier or anything like this. I'm not always too convinced, but I'm gonna do it, okay? So stir that through, and then you can start to add your fish, okay? And it's just adding the fish, adding the batter, and then we're gonna add the other ingredients. All done. So as you can see, we've got some beautiful colors going on, and from here, we're gonna add the rest. You don't have to add everything. It's really up to you. I like always to kind of judge by vision. Like I kind of look and I'm like, you know what, maybe a bit of chives in here, I'm gonna add a bit of chili, is that enough? Yes, and maybe, you know, a grind of pepper in there. And of course a bit of salt. You want some salt because there was no salt at all. And then you mix the whole lot. I'm gonna go crazy and add a bit of these Thai chilies in there. That's gonna be hot. I'm gonna be on fire. And that's gonna be, okay, so in the fridge and an oil time. Let's go. So I've got an oil at 180 degrees Celsius with the Fahrenheit, and with the spoon I'm gonna start first. I always do a test with a kind of a small tablespoon, because there is a chance that this thing might decide to fall apart totally. So here we go. First one. Okay, the foam is receding. It's barely 3 minutes. Whoa, look at that. Yeah, I've just checked my temperature of the oil was a little bit too hot, so make sure it's not too hot. So I'm gonna use one with the chili. See it goes. Ooh. So 3 minutes I think is spot on, and I think definitely below 180 to give you a bit of time to cook the whole thing there would be better. I would say 175 might be best, so you have time to kind of let it roll around and really cook properly. I've just thrown 2 in there to lower the oil temperature. I'm gonna tame it down. Let's look, and we're going on our way to the first minute. You see? So lower temperature, that's gonna really take its time to cook there. That's a bit better. Let's have a look. Wow, I like that. Nice color, not too brown. I'm gonna stop it. So actually it is really, really fast. Now let's try one. Ta-da-da-da-da-da. Rolling the drums. Okay, so look at that. This one though, it's still a little bit at lower temperature. Let's see how it tastes like. It's a bit, it's moist, but it's cooked because the fish is cooked already, so no problem. No, I think it's fine. The fish is not like rubber. You feel the fish. I can feel the other aromatics. I can feel the chives and the spring onion, but definitely, you know, what it needs here is a dipping sauce. Now remember, that sauce was super hot. But why do we have this kind of, you know, lemony, vinegary kind of sauce with chili? Because the batter with the white fish, there's a dullness to it. It's fine, it stays fine, but it just needs something to wake the whole thing up. And I hope, well, this is going to be the answer. Let's see. Yeah, immediately, perfect match. Now that is bringing the missing element. So you got that tanginess, zestiness, lemon. So fish and lemon goes super well. Yeah. I'm gonna open another one up. Okay, one of the beginning. It's like a fish nugget, but that sauce, wow, you need something like this. Now that was quite interesting, and that completes the video on how to make some simple fish fritters called akra in the French Caribbean, and made, remember, with salted cod for the original recipe. But here we're using normal fish, and perhaps you could use salmon, who knows? That's probably I will leave you with this picture on the screen, and I'll be waiting for you for the next little cooking class on the French Cooking Academy. Take care all, bye bye. By